Human trafficking is a difficult subject to talk about, but it's also a necessary topic to address because the reality is it happens everywhere, even right here in northern Michigan. Thankfully, for the men and women who find themselves trapped as victims of human trafficking, there's Leslie King. Whitney Amon and Chief Photojournalist Derek Lahr introduce you to her in part one of their special report, Survivors in the Streets, Rewriting Endings.
Adults and children alike turn to books as an escape.
When I'm reading books, I'm in this whole different world. You know what I mean? I'm the prince, the frog, I'm everything in this fantasy land. And I tell people that was my get out.
For some, turning those pages provides a vital escape from their reality.
My father was a chronic alcoholic. My mother was a workaholic. As far back as I can remember, I can just still see and hear my mother screams and, my father just beating her viciously. I remember that.
And the trauma Leslie faced day after day didn't stop at home.
I was called white girl, mutt, Oreo, Heinz 57, because majority of the kids in my school were African American. You know what I'm saying? Very few Caucasian, and I'm the brightest thing in there. Scared to go to school, didn't want to go to school, kids would beat me up.
Then Leslie's older cousin moved in. He would take her and her siblings to the store, buy them things, and play dolls with her in their attic.
He gained my trust only to start molesting me.
She was 8 years old.
Little girls look up to their father, they're daddy's little princesses. That was not my father. That didn't happen. My mother, we were never told I love you, nor were we ever given a hug, so I didn't know what any of that meant.
This was just the beginning of what would be years of running.
Don't know what I'm running from or where I want running to. I just know I needed to go.
The running continued until one day, Leslie found herself walking down the street.
Guy pulled up to me. He was like, "You okay? Why are you crying? Are you okay?" I mean, he sounded really empathetic. To me, there was no reason for me to be alarmed. I wasn't afraid. Every time I ran away, he was right there.
He took her out, got to know her, and asked her questions about her family.
That knight in shining armor that I read about in books when I was a little girl. That was never gonna let anybody hurt me.
What Leslie didn't know is that knight in shining armor would use all that information against her and lead her right to these streets.
We drinking, laughing, talking, and when I came to, his friend was on top of me having sex with me any way he wanted to. I looked over at this man who's supposed to love me and care for me, nobody's gonna hurt me, and he looking at me like dirt, and he told me his exact words was, "Bitch, get my money."
She was 15 years old.
My man grabbed my hair, threw me in the car, and took me to this house where it was other women in that house. The term for that is stable. When you got a pimp with other women, that's called a stable.
That's where Leslie was dressed, given drugs to calm her down, then taken to South Division in Grand Rapids.
I was told, if you run, if you call the police, I'm gonna kill your mama, your brother, your sister, and your son. And if they find you, they're gonna find your body parts scattered all over the state of Michigan.
For the first time at 15 years old, Leslie turned what's called a trick. Her life went on like this for over 20 years, in and out of jail and different institutions.
Like a lot of people, why don't you just leave? It's not that easy. Why don't you just stop? It's not that easy.
During these years, Leslie's mind had her surviving on a false sense of self-esteem and self-worth. Because remember,
as a child, my getaway was books to go into a fantasy land. Well, now that I'm older, drugs and alcohol, so I don't have to think and feel like I can numb out. And I tell people this all the time. If Johns don't kill us, pimps don't kill us, we don't accidentally overdose, we kill ourselves. And that's what I was ready to do. No more names, no more pain, no more memories, no more anything. It's done.
Thankfully for Leslie and the hundreds of men and women she has helped over the years, this is not the end of her story. She spent the last 20 years saving hundreds of women who were right where she was for more than 20 years. If you or someone you know is a victim of human trafficking, we have listed Leslie's phone number and more resources for you on our website. And don't miss part 2 of Survivors in the Streets, Rewriting Endings, tomorrow at 11.